Hi everybody. Just want to remind you that we have a quick test, exam, quiz, whatever you want to call it, checking the oil on Friday. I will be posting a review VoiceThread tomorrow night. I'm working on, for those of you that have had some struggles with VoiceThread getting logged in, I'm working on making it a kind of thing that's just embedded in my website, so you don't even have to log in. You just click on it and it plays for you. The only problem with that is you wouldn't be able to comment, so I'm going to have both options available. If you do know right now that you are having, you're unable to log into VoiceThread, go try right now. Pause this, go try. If you can, great. If you can't, email me immediately and just say, I still can't get logged in. Do that from your school email address, and I will try to contact them again and see if they can't do something to manually get your account activated. So today's focus is kind of the transition. Your feedback on the bottom of the quiz today, a lot of it had to do with just I feel good about mercantilism, but now this French and Indian War thing, I'm a little confused on. And that's, to be honest, that's to be expected because we've spent less time on it. And really, I connect it to this part of what we're talking about. The details of the French and Indian War, I'm not so concerned with. I think it's a good idea for you to know that they're getting together for the first time and they have impressions of one another. But what I really want you to know about the French and Indian War is how it dramatically alters the relationship, and the aftermath of that war leads directly to the American Revolution. So I have this up here just to make this the emphasis of this lesson, which is the thing that's going to ultimately cause the British style of mercantilism to break down is this feature that they added of a transplant society. They take people from their home country and move them to their colonies. And the fact that they do that over generations is what allows for those people in the colonies to kind of develop their own identity, develop their own culture, develop their own political systems, and to really not be British anymore. And we start to see them learn this most emphatically during the period of the French and Indian War. So for this lesson, by the end of this, what I'd like you to be able to do is to be able to explain why Parliament, specifically England, just did not understand the colonists' argument of no taxation without representation. That is, the colonists are going to be frustrated because the pendulum is swinging back and it's knocking down the wall. Post-French and Indian War, it's no longer just they're involved. Now they're uber involved, and that's going to wreck, wreck the relationship. So just let's review a couple things. Just a reminder here that we have, for the British, we have occupied this new territory as a result of the French and Indian War. And if you think about the colonial perspective, tunnel vision, this was the victory of the war, access to this land. Whereas you should remember also that the British goal was this larger imperial conquest, this global empire. So if we look at what was gained, what the colonists believed that they had won versus what the British had actually won, we get this different perception of where the empire is going, or at least where I'm going in the empire. England is thinking very globally. The colonists are thinking very locally, and that is, I most encourage you to pause right now and write this down, because it is going to be so important throughout the year. The colonists believe in local control, and what we're going to see develop is they are developing, and they have this problem with a distant authority trying to exert its power. Local control versus distant authority. If you can begin to understand that dilemma, you're gonna really you're going to understand one of the biggest dilemmas throughout the history of the United States in American politics. Local control is what the colonists were worried about, their local problems. They aren't concerned with what the distant authority is concerned about, or what they're doing, or how they're going to run the empire until it's right in their face. So let's take a look at some new stuff. This is pretty small, huh? Which of these goals is consistent with mercantilism? And for that, I need you to think mercantilism is an imperial thing. So we have to think of it from England's perspective. And so the colonists, they're not even thinking about the empire. They're thinking about themselves, thinking about their own interests. That can't be consistent with mercantilism. And so something that I want you to consider and maybe pause and take a couple notes on for yourself is, how might the pendulum effect play a role in this? That is, if the colonists are very sure about where they're at, right, what they're doing, and the rightness of their victory in the French and Indian War, how might the pendulum effect play a role in the relationship? So I would encourage you to pause right here and maybe jot down some ideas. How might the pendulum effect play a role in the relationship between England and the colonies, knowing now that the colonists kind of have this victory that they see, and the British may view it very differently. Okay, I don't know if you paused, but if you did, welcome back. And here's where we're going to pick up. I want you to be aware of the impact of the French and Indian War. And I want to just repeat one more time. Not so worried about the details of the French and Indian War, except for maybe just what it revealed about the relationship. Instead, I want you to focus on the idea. This guy keeps on walking by. Walk by. He's peeking in. He sees me talking at the computer. I think he thinks I'm crazy, and he's walking by to make sure I'm okay or something. The impact of the French and Indian War is what I want to focus on. So the impact of the French and Indian War, the first thing you got to realize is the British won. Plain and simple, the British won. Now, as a result of that, the colonists are on the winning side, and they want their land. For them, land equals the victory, or the victory equals land. You could do that either way. But the British won. The British won. The colonists are a part of that, but the British won. The British spent a lot of money. Now, think about fighting a war here. You got to get boats and troops and food and weapons to all of these different places where you're fighting, and you have a presence. You have a military presence, and you're trying to win a global war, a real world war. They spent a lot of money. That costs a lot of money, and a lot of their wealth that they had accumulated was going out to support this war effort. Now, they think of it as an investment in the future, right? If they spend this money in the war and they get more territory, it's going to bring in more money. But for the time being, there's a moment of vulnerability because they have invested their wealth in the war. And so here's the key for understanding how this relationship is about to take a dramatic turn, how the pendulum is going to shift back. The pendulum is going to go through the wall. The British have to find ways to, number one, cut their expenses, and number two, to bring in money quickly. They need to cut costs. They need to bring in revenue. They need to get their wealth back up as quickly as they can. As quickly as they can. Now, yeah, they may have gone out and they may have gotten all these different possessions, but think about how long it takes to get the resources, how long it's going to take to profit from those resources. They need it now. The colonists, well, their victory, they want their land now. They want it now. Everything else is England's problem. But what they're failing to recognize is that they are also a part of England's problem. So let's take a trip down a couple of examples of the pendulum. And now we're not just swinging back. I mean, this pendulum is flying back. Instead of thinking of it as a pendulum at this point, think of it as a wrecking ball. And it's gonna destroy the relationship. First, and this was from section 4 of chapter 3, but I want to emphasize it. The first thing that the British do, the first thing that the British do, along the lines of finding ways to cut their expenses, is they draw this line on the map. And I'm just going to go up to this map and just show you again right here. They draw a line on the map right through here. And show you on this map. They draw a line. You can actually see it here. That's the proclamation line. The proclamation of 1763. And what they said was that the colonists, for the time being, could not move west of that line. From a practical perspective, from the British perspective, they didn't want to have to send troops over to protect them. And they thought if the colonists go out there, they're going to get into a fight with the Indians. And we don't want to support that. So they drew a line on the map and said you can't go west. Now just imagine how the colonists would feel about this. They think their victory was to get that land. So a couple things to think about, maybe to take some notes on. Why did the colonists believe their rights? What did the colonists believe their rights to be? Why did England do this? So we see this controversy. The colonists believe they have these rights, right? England showing them what their actual rights are. So if I went back to the goal, explain why Parliament did not understand the colonists' argument, no taxation without representation. This is in the same vein, right? The colonists don't understand how this distant authority can put this law on them because they believe they have their own innate rights. If we take this a step further, it's going to get uglier because we have this thing, down the line they have this thing called the Stamp Act. Well, this is in the way of bringing in money quickly. The quickest way is just to get money in. The British realized that the colonists haven't really been taxed, but they've been enjoying the benefits of the empire, especially the army. And so a couple of things to think about here. Do you know the difference between a direct tax and an indirect tax? We will talk about this in class tomorrow, but something to maybe check out tonight, maybe take a note on. Why are the colonists so against paying their share of running the empire? What's the problem? What is this concept of virtual representation? And we're going to spend a lot of time on this in class tomorrow. But this is a great example. The Stamp Act is a great example of the relationship breaking down even further. Another example is that when they start to try to collect these taxes, the colonists rebel. They don't revolt, but they rebel. They strike back. The people who were local tax collectors, they get punished. This is an image of tarring and feathering, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tarring and feathering tomorrow. But it's a gruesome process. Google tar and feather in colonial times. You didn't survive this. They send in British tax collectors because the local tax collectors were getting abused so badly. This just brings in that distant authority even more. And so, what's the British government supposed to do? The colonists begin to organize, and we're gonna stop short of revolution because all this test is going to be on is breaking down of mercantilism. And in these things, you can see how the British are interpreting their rights in mercantilism. They need to stop spending money. They need to bring in some money. They need to control rowdy colonists. And now the colonists are, they're dividing into camps. There's a third of the colonists who think of themselves as patriots, that, this distant authority has to be corrected. There's something wrong. There's another third that are afraid, we're loyal to England. There's nothing wrong here. This is their right. And then there's another third that at the time being, if you look in the 1760s, they're just kind of indifferent. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why that's true in one of the activities that we're going to do in class tomorrow. This image is in your textbook, and it depicts the Boston Massacre. And the Boston Massacre is going to be one of those watershed moments where we're not even paying attention to the pendulum anymore. The relationship is shattering. The relationship may be beyond repair. And now decisions have to be made. And this is going to be our transition to the next unit, Unit 2, that will get us into the revolution. So what I want you to be able to be able to do by the end of this presentation is to explain why Parliament did not understand the colonists' argument, no taxation without representation. And what it comes back to is the things that we've been talking about since we've been talking about mercantilism. That the colonists have had their own goals. That the colonial population is growing dramatically. That in the colonies, they do not see the right of a distant authority to come in and tell them and do things to them that they believe they have the right to do, that they have the right to be. And this is a dramatic break. And we are going to do an activity in class tomorrow that will get you very clear on the concepts of the relationship, not only being damaged, but maybe being completely broken.